Welcome, everybody. Thanks for making time. We are here with Ganesh Baskaran, who is the Chief Product and Technology Officer at Arrivia, which is a leader in sort of B2B travel technology, powering some of the biggest brands in the world. So wanted to I'll introduce Ganesh, but before we get started, wanted to talk a little bit about Provn and the Talent Scouts program. So here at Provn, we're all about sort of performance-based hiring and enabling anybody in the world to get hired at a great company by basically proving your capabilities through our challenge process. So as part of the Provn talent draft, we basically have some great talent scouts. Ganesh, who you're going to meet, Neil Zuckerman, who we're going to have doing a webinar next week. Neil is a senior partner at BCG, so he's going to be talking overall about how talent is changing. We have Jeff Koonins, who is going to be who is the CTO and Chief Product Officer of Axon. So Axon is the company behind tasers, body cams, and drones, the largest supplier of technology to police departments. And then rounding it out in May will be Dr. Sandeep Krishnamurthy, who's the Dean of the Business School at Cal Poly. So super excited. And just a recap, so I think everybody who's here on this webinar has applied for a job at Arrivia, a builder job, either a job as an agentic engineer or as a builder, product design, product manager, product engineer. So the way that Provn works is that we have, like if you go to Provn and find the Arrivia job descriptions, each one has a challenge associated with it. So you, as a candidate, can basically review the job description, but in order to apply, you actually have to complete the challenge. So through the challenge process of actually building something, that's important. But the second piece that's equally important is that you actually have to demo and defend and talk through your product. By actually doing the walkthrough of the product, we actually can learn what it's like to work with you, understand your critical thinking, understand your creativity, and then what we do is we match you with a great company like Arrivia based on your responses. So with that, I'd like to just welcome Ganesh. Ganesh is the Chief Product and Technology Officer at Arrivia. Ganesh has a long and very successful career here in the Seattle area. Ganesh was early at Amazon, early at AWS, has done a lot and was we're Chief Product Officer at Woot, and then Chief Product Officer at Expedia's B2B business, which was actually the fastest growing part of the business. And we're going to spend the next hour with Ganesh talking about agentic building. He has kind of two key roles at different levels, which he's hiring for on Provn. So he has agentic software engineers, and then he has kind of product designers, product managers, product engineers, kind of the builder profile, and we'll talk through Ganesh's view of builders here together. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and welcome Ganesh. All right. Hey, Ganesh, how are you?
I'm good, Niki. Thank you very much. Thanks for.
Do you want to just, I gave a short overview, but you just give a little bit of kind of we have a lot of people, some who are early in career, some who are later career here on the webinar. Just talk through your career progression and how you ended up at Arrivia.
Yeah. I started my career early days in AWS, right back when AWS was super small and Amazon was in one building in Seattle, right? And everybody was there. Like all of AWS, to just appreciate the scale, all of AWS had 3 BD people and 5 support people when I started.
Wow.
Right.
Amazing.
So like one of those right places at the right time, I'd say, like helped me. Like I learned a lot. And I used to work with one of the BD people, like to go around, meet customers, startups at that time, and just interact with their CTOs and other technical leaders to figure out what their challenges are, how they can migrate to AWS. And that kind of like while I started as an engineer, it kind of helped me think like a builder, I'd say, because I'd start with the customer, their problem, and then come back, figure out how to solve it. Like, I mean, I was fortunate to be in that position. Right. And then from there, I was in retail, helped Amazon launch in a few different countries, spent some time at Woot and then Twitch, and then went into the startup world, was at a couple of startups, and then at Expedia, right? Along the way, product and technology leadership roles. And the thing that really drove my career was my quest for learning, right? And anytime I felt like my learning curve is flattening, I'd be in a different role and look for that steep learning curve, right?
Great.
So it naturally took me through different industries from cloud to like retail to gaming to blockchain and fintech and travel. So that just gave me a perspective that most
Now,
people don't have. Yeah.
most people probably have not heard of Arrivia. What was it about Arrivia that attracted you from like Expedia, which was like a big brand that people know about, to Arrivia, which powers a lot of big brands that everyone's heard of?
Yeah, a couple of things, right? Like one is I really wanted to be in a role where the entire leadership team and especially the CEO truly believes in end-to-end transformation using AI, right? And like when I met Mike, he was who's our CEO, he was like super keen to drive the transformation, and he's been like for the past year 100% supportive. And change is hard, especially for a 20-year-old company, right? And he's been fully supportive of change, and the entire leadership team is. And yeah, like I can be myself and be a change agent, I think,
That's great.
without much red tape. So that was one big thing that attracted me. And then the other one, really to learn more about the private equity world, right? Like I've
Okay.
never been part of that space before.
Yeah.
So that's the learning curve I'm going through here and how
Okay.
those companies operate and how to drive value in that ecosystem. So.
Got it. Great. So let's talk about agentic engineering, which is kind of the topic for today. Like, I think you said you have 250 people in your org or 250 engineers. Is that right?
Yeah, somewhere in that ballpark, right?
Yeah. And so, like, how have you reorganized and designed the team for this AI agentic engineering opportunity?
Yeah, the great question. The team has gone through like at least 3 or 4 different reorgs in the past year, I'd say.
Okay.
Uh, Again, keeping up truly with the culture of like learn, change, adapt,
Yeah.
right? And the biggest message to every single builder on the team is, hey, build something to solve your own problem and solve your customers' problems. Like we are going to flatten titles, like you're not going to be a database engineer or front-end engineer or back-end engineer or any of these anymore. Like you are operating in a particular vertical and you're specializing solving problems in that vertical. So if you're accountable for, let's say, security, you're building agentic solutions to proactively detect security threats, to look at audit findings, proactively fix those findings. So you're an agentic engineer working in the security domain, right?
Okay.
That's how to think about. And that applies to any other engineer operating in any other domain, be it like a consumer conversion funnel or data side of things or security side of things. Like you're an agentic engineer, you're solving a problem in a particular domain, but you're solving it yourself instead of
Okay.
like depending on 20 different teams to solve it.
And how has that changed and how's that going with the team? I assume you have a wide variety of people being excited and others being like, I don't understand why we're doing this.
100%, like in any organization and any team, there are always like people who embrace the change and want to be at the tip of the spear and see it as an opportunity, and people who are like, hey, I don't believe in AI or whatnot, and on the other side of the spectrum. So what I tell everybody is like AI is just a tool in your toolbox, right? If you're not using it today, you're going to fall behind tomorrow. Right. Just like when programming languages evolved, cloud computing came up and other things, there were companies that, like early days of AWS, I was there in that at the tip of that spear, and there were companies who didn't want to be on the cloud. And there were companies on the tip of the spear moving to the cloud. And within those companies, there were engineers who wanted to be there and didn't want to be there. And history tells the story, right? In 15-ish years after the cloud revolution, like it's a clear winner. There are still scenarios where it makes sense to have your own data center, your own applications running. But even in those cases, a lot of the cloud principles uh, adopted in the local data centers that a particular company owns and builds, right? So I think that transformation is going to happen over the next 5 to 10 years with
Yep.
AI. Like it's just going to completely change the way we work and the way we build software, right? And like just like back in the days when somebody had to keep cloud in their toolbox and figure out how do you best use it and how to evolve with it. Today, like an engineer has to keep this tool in their toolbox, right? And figure out
Yep.
how to evolve with it. So that's
So,
what I think. Yeah.
so you've used two terms that I think it'd be great to go a little bit deeper on. One is agentic engineer, and the other is builder. So, how do you define those two? And what are you? How are you shaping your organization going forward?
I mean, in my head, they are quite interchangeable,
Okay.
right? Like builder is really someone who just builds things, right? Like if you think about, hey, I want to build a home, or I want to build uh, this particular thing for myself as a hobby, like you're just going out on YouTube or whatever, like, and figuring out how to do it, and you're building it for yourself. Like, for example, I built like raised beds for my garden, right?
Hmm.
I didn't go ask somebody to do the design for me, and somebody to actually cut the wood for me, and somebody to figure out how to put everything together, and somebody to move and fill soil in it, right? I figured out how to do it end to end and like put it out there in my garden and started growing vegetables there, right? Like I'm just
Okay.
giving that. So
Yep.
that is the definition of a builder, right? If you take that same thing and apply it to software, right, and solving customer problems, you're able to, as a builder, go from point A to point B, like the problem definition, all the way to a working solution in production, and you're able to do it yourself and exercising high judgment, high velocity decisions every step of the way, right? And if you're wrong, you admit you're wrong, and then you keep iterating, right? So that is the definition of builder. Now, is that builder doing it in the context of like building a garden bed or software is the question, and that becomes the agentic engineer, really, right? Like when you're building it in the when you're doing it in the context of software, and you're using some of these agentic solutions to help you get there, right? Again, don't use AI and agentic solution for the sake of using it. If
Yeah.
it truly makes sense, like for example, agentic solutions are not really good today to create amazing high quality designs, right? You're still
Okay.
going to have to iterate back and forth whenever there is the creative aspect and ambiguity aspect. You have to go back and forth with it. Like, I mean, whatever is mundane, you just use the AI to iterate over it.
Mhm.
But wherever there is creativity and ambiguity, you're like going back and forth and providing that input and spend a lot of time, right? Once the ambiguity is resolved and there is a clear plan to execute, then you just delegate to the AI agentic solution and say, okay, here is the plan. I want to build software to do A, B, and C, and here are the 50 steps to do it. Go through it in this order. Here's how you implement the test. Here's how you make sure the output is correct. Go to the next step and finish it for me and tell me you're done, right?
Right.
So like taking through that process is that agentic engineer really.
Okay. And I guess now what I see is like of the people that are applying for either the builder jobs or the agentic engineering is very much traditional software engineer. Like for them to be successful in your org, what are the skills that they really need to be displaying? Like how are you evaluating somebody who's a great fit for this role on your team?
Yeah, so they're able to, a builder is actually taking something that is very ambiguous and getting it to a place where a V1 is working, right? And there is proof that it is working, right? And
Okay.
then an agentic engineer who is also a builder in a certain sense, right? They're not really dealing with all the initial V0 to V1 ambiguity, right?
Yeah.
That's already figured out for them. Right now, a V1 is there, it's working. Now the job is to make sure how do you scale it in
Okay.
production, and how do you make sure it works for millions of users? How do you make sure that the pipelines are hardened? How do you make sure that there is the right logging, monitoring, alerting? How do you make sure there is the right security hardening, so on and so forth, right? And like in traditional worlds, like you would depend on like 50 other people to take care of smaller things for you, right?
Yeah.
Now, like you're able to see that end to end and you're able to implement it and test it and drive that.
Got it. And now the other half of the people applying for jobs tend to be, or roles at Arrivia tend to be designers, product managers, or kind of front-end engineers. Like, what are the skills that you are looking for that group to be successful in your
Well,
org?
yeah, for that group, I mean, they have to go from producing like a document or a mock-up to actually building prototypes, testing and iterating to get that like single sentence idea or problem statement to a working V1 with customers, right? And then
Mhm.
when it is working, they hand over to the agent. Like, I mean, let's say they look at 20 different things that they have hypotheses around in their testing, and maybe two of them are proven with users and show promise. Now
Yep.
take those two, and then the agentic engineers on the other side are then helping scale those.
And then where do you see the biggest gaps that, as you watch your team or you watch new candidates, either new employees or candidates, where do you think the biggest weaknesses or gaps are between the world? Yeah, I mean, things are changing fast, right? So people a year ago, we were looking for people in a very different way than we are today, and I would say Opus 4.6 and the latest versions of Codex and OpenClaw have all really changed how people are thinking about the workflow. How are you seeing, like, as within an enterprise environment, how are you seeing the biggest gaps in adoption, particularly for people that are being asked to do a lot more than they were asked to do 6 months ago?
Yeah, I think the biggest gaps, I mean, maybe I can answer the question in a different way, right?
Okay.
The people who are being super successful, right, are the ones who can um, display that level of curiosity, right, and always have that mindset that, hey, AI today is better than AI a week ago, right? So maybe a week ago I tried something and it didn't work. Maybe today it works. Let me retry, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And see if I can simplify this thing for myself and make myself more productive, right? And maybe it doesn't work this week. Don't hold on to it. Don't hold it against this AI. Try it again next week. It's probably
Yeah.
going to work, right? So like someone who has that curiosity and that resilience are the ones who are super successful, right?
Okay.
And uh, to answer your question directly, the people who don't display those are the ones who have the gaps, right? And
Right.
they don't level up fast enough, and they don't operate as 5, 10, 15x engineers like over a period of time.
And do you think it's like a fundamental attitude that somebody needs to have going into, this builder mindset, or are there skill gaps, like, or, how do you think through skills versus attitude? Like, is everything knowable now through the agent?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, skill gaps more often than not are very coachable. Right? If you have the right mindset and attitude, right? And historically, you would probably get coaching from a more senior engineer, principal engineer, or somebody on the team, right? And you'll have a support system. We do still continue to have that support system for you to lean on and learn from people who are ahead of you on the curve. But there are also so many resources out there, right? Billions of dollars are going into building these AI solutions, and there is so much free educational content that's created out there that people can leverage. And I mean, people can also leverage AI to teach them, right? Like, and more often than not, what I find myself doing is when I solve, like I use Cursor a lot, I use Claude Code a lot, and when I solve a problem using any of those tools, in sometimes I don't quite get how the agent is writing the software to solve that problem, right? And I don't have the time to review every single line of code they write, but at least like I have these learning opportunity moments with like, let's pause for a minute, right? Here is how you solve this problem. Why did you solve it this way? Why can't we solve it this other way, right? And just have that conversation with AI, like to either change your mind, oh, you got it wrong, and the way it was implemented was the most optimal way, or maybe AI just created a sexy, more complicated solution, and it's not really necessary to be that complex. Let's simplify it, right? And do it this other way.
Great. So let's get back. So it sounds like the attitude and the approach is really critical to success on the job with Arrivia. So you wrote a great LinkedIn post in terms of how you're thinking through hiring on your team. What can you just give kind of like how you think the best way to get the signal for who's going to be successful, either as a builder or agentic engineer, and what the Arrivia hiring process looks like for these, AI native roles?
Yeah, I mean, our hiring process has evolved for sure because the current day and age, a lot of resumes and other content is written by AI, so it is hard to differentiate who is real, has the real experience versus not, right? So we have gone more to like the concept of proof of work, right? You would have heard that in the Bitcoin and blockchain world, right? Like you mine Bitcoins through proof of work, right? Like, and that is a very commonly known term. It's a protocol that's been alive for a long, long time, right? We are just approaching it the same way, like show me your proof of work, right? And that is the builder loop, as we call it. So you can either pick a problem that you solve yourself, or you can take a problem solve statement from us and you can go and solve it, right? And come and demo it to us, right? And of course, we don't expect the demo to be perfect. We don't expect you to spend weeks and weeks on it solving the problem, right? It is just to see if you're able to use the right tools in the toolbox available today to any technologist and solve the problem in a great way, right? And also understand the limitations of the way you solve the problem and able to articulate how you will fix those limitations if you had more time and if you had maybe a more senior engineer to help you or a team to help you or whatnot, right? So that is as simple as it, right? And so we ask you to build a prototype, you come and demo the prototype and you talk through how you did it and you talk through the limitations and all. Like it's like an hour, 90 minutes. We spend that time with you to see if you can really prove your work, right?
Yep.
That is the builder loop, but everything else is the same as in the past, like culture fit, team fit, attitude fit, all of that. You just go through a few conversations and you get to know the person better. And the person gets to know about the company better. And if there is mutual fit and if there is proof of work, we hire you.
And then what are you when you do these builder loops, what are you looking for specifically? Are there clues that you're like, wow, this person's amazing, or I don't know if this person's going to be a good fit? Like, what is it that you're looking for, listening for, either in terms of how they're building or how they talk through what they've built?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it is around a few vectors, right? One is how did they take that uh, problem statement and resolve the ambiguities, right? How did they do research around this particular problem, right? Like how did they ground the truth and in industry research and industry data, right? And then how did they go and what are the key judgment calls they made for like a V1 offering, right? And why did they believe in those judgment calls to be the right ones for V1? And then how did they go about building the V1? What tools did they use and what process did they use to go build it? And what architectural choices did they make for V1? And why were they okay for V1, right? So those are kind of the key signals we look for, and someone who is um, like a really good builder is able to articulate all of this well. Like, what are the judgment calls did I make, and what were the trade-offs, and why did I make these trade-offs? It doesn't have to be like there is no right or wrong answer here, right? But at least if there is a clear um, clear thinking behind all these judgment calls and there is clear reasoning behind that, that's great. Right. And then if they clearly understand the limitations of some of the decisions they made and they have a plan to test and learn around those limitations or the unknowns, that's another great signal.
So on the call there, we have a mix of early in career, either I'm just graduating from college or a master's program, or we also have a mix of people who have a lot of experience but doing work in a more traditional way. What advice would you give both of those groups of people in terms of adapting to agentic engineering and this new builder world that is happening with AI?
Yeah, I mean, it's single advice for both the groups. I think there has been not a better time to be a builder, right? Um, so I'd say challenge if you are an experienced person, challenge the traditional norms that we've always had to build software and see how you can build it faster and better, right? And so, like, if you are experienced, like you already have been through a lot of these judgment calls, you've already made a lot of mistakes and you've learned from these mistakes, and you're able to make good judgment calls today, right? And so, like, it's an amazing time for you for sure, right? And you can probably even launch your own startup and be successful, leaning in on all the past experience and using the tools that we have today, right? So, I mean, if you want to do that, take that leap, do it. Or if you want to be part of like a company like Arrivia and help us build something big from ground up, come help us do it, right? Or any company for that matter, right? On the other hand, if you're in early career, you don't have any of those like any of the baggage, so to say, that people with experience carry because like sometimes experience comes in the way, right? Because we've made some mistakes, learned in a certain way, and it is hard to change mind because when like we've been burnt in a certain way with certain things in the past, even if tools have improved so you don't get burnt in those things that's those scars stick with us, right? But if you're early in your career you don't have those scars, right? The skill that you have to develop really is how do you learn to make good judgment calls, right? And how can you have someone who is a mentor, guide you can trust, right? And like help them, help work with them to get some of those skills. And then you can, of course, go very fast because you don't have any of the past scares that like an experienced person might have.
Got it. Great. Um, and then I guess as you see, we have, I think, 700 or 800 people that have applied for the jobs at Arrivia just through Proven. What do you think are keys in terms of what they should know about Arrivia and what will make them successful in the job, other than what you've already told us about the builder mindset?
Yeah, I mean, what you like, just a little bit about Arrivia, right? So we power travel loyalty solutions for big Fortune 500 brands. Uh, Most of you are probably a T-Mobile customer, and if you book travel through T-Mobile, that is Arrivia behind it. We power that whole experience. Like if you have an Amex card and you go and book a cruise, that's Arrivia. If you are a USAA customer, like Arrivia powers travel, Hilton, Marriott, Grand Vacations, we power travel, and many other brands, right? So like that's kind of who we are and who we work with. Um, and we cover solutions across various categories of travel, like be it cruise or air or car or hotel, or activities, whatever you want to book as a customer, or whatever a loyalty provider wants to offer their member base. We offer all of those, right? So, and broadly speaking, there is a lot of complexity when it comes to travel and technology, because there are so many different suppliers providing travel services, and then there are so many destinations one can go to. And travel is typically the most expensive spend someone does in a given year, right? Unless if they're buying a car or a home, right? So it is complex, it is emotional. There is a big loyalty component associated with it because every major brand is offering travel as part of their loyalty program, right? And those are all the things that make it complex. And we are, as a reviewer, at the right place, right, on many uh, good conversations across large companies to help power their travel. Um, and we are just fundamentally trying to rethink all of travel, right? Like, I mean, uh, we we have full funnel data um, for a lot of customers, like millions and millions of customers who have called our agents and have booked complex trips, right? Like they booked complex cruises. There are people who have booked $50,000 cruises, right? And we have the full conversation transcripts, of course, redacted and everything, for many such bookings, right? And most companies cannot claim to have the data because a traditional OTA, like most of the discovery happens on Google and social media and everywhere else. And then when someone comes to the OTA, they enter a keyword, they get to a search page, they click through and then make a booking. So most of the OTAs have funnel click data, right? Versus us, we have a ton of qualitative and quantitative data, right? And that's where it is super ripe for AI and building a AI concierge solution that is close to a human, right? And can be close to like the best sale travel agent out there, who is hyper personalized for a particular individual's needs and can help you plan that trip end to end and be with you every step of the way with the trip. That is the vision we are going towards, right? Easier said than done, of course, right? And we are taking baby steps towards accomplishing that vision. And we will be launching something soon this quarter. And like, yeah, if you want to be part of that journey, like, it'd be great to have you there.
Super exciting vision. So we'll wrap up with some just quick questions and then we'll go to Q&A. So 2 years from now, what percent of your team do you think is agentic first?
Uh, I would say 100%.
100%. All right. Do you think like the concept of being a software engineer will exist in 2 years?
Uh, it is hard for me to predict what will happen in 2 years with AI, but
Yeah.
looking at the current pace, software engineers, as we used to know in the last 5 years, would probably not exist. Like, I mean, there will be an engineering role and building software. But I believe more people can do that. More
Yeah.
people make software building will be accessible to more people.
Right.
And you probably don't need to have a CS degree or understand data structures and cloud computing to be able to do that.
Right.
And so like that's where like everybody who's been a traditional software engineer, like how they evolve is up to them.
Yeah.
So,
W-
yeah.
We'll all become software engineers, basically,
Yes.
or no one's a software engineer. We'll see.
Right. We'll see.
What's the one tool or practice that you think has dramatically changed your team's velocity over the last 6 months to year?
Um, I'd say two things. One is Claude Code,
Hmm.
right? And the other one is um, building intentional agentic workflows that can proactively solve problems that are large in volume and cause like the effect of bleed by thousand cuts, right? So that's a perfect example of something that can be solved using an agentic workflow. And some teams have been able to build those, and that has dramatically changed the way they are creating impact.
Great. And last question. Finish this sentence. The engineer I'd hired tomorrow is someone who blank.
Curious and resilient.
All right, great. All right,
Yeah.
with that, thank you, Ganesh. With that, I'll open it up for questions. So Shailja is kind of monitoring the Q&A. So you should see a Q&A button in the upper
Right.
part of the menu, and feel free to ask questions in the Q&A section. And then Shailja, if anyone asks a question in the chat, please let me know. Um, all right. So just to get things going, I guess one of the questions that we hear a lot with AI generated code is quality. How do you think about code quality when so much of it is AI generated?
Yeah, that is a problem, quite frankly, we are working on solving still, right? Yeah. So some of the approaches we are taking, like even let alone AI written code, like even human written code, um, what we found was majority of them when it comes to a peer review, they're rubber stamped. Right. And that effect we've seen in many companies too, right? And now, if that is the world we live in, when that velocity of PRs increase, there's probably going to be more rubber stamping. So we are finding solutions, or we are testing a couple of different solutions to do like AI judging and peer reviewing of code
Okay.
and flag any issues there that can be sent to a human review. Like, so when we solve it, what it looks like is probably 90% of the code gets reviewed by AI and pushed to production automatically, assuming they pass a bunch of quality gates. Right.
Okay.
And for that, your CI/CD pipeline has to be hardened. Your automation should be in a great place. You should be able to detect security threats um, along the way and everything, right? And then the 10% where the AI judging, like if you think about two different AI judges trying to judge the code, and if they don't agree within a certain confidence level, that's when it comes to an engineer for review and with very specific feedback on what they have to look at. And
Got it.
right, yeah.
To that, Mark asked a question on security, like what are you doing at Arrivia to make sure that AI doesn't go rogue and doesn't make changes that were not requested? Is that an issue that you're seeing right now?
Not an issue yet because I don't think like the systems and services where security is a big concern. Like for example, our systems that process payments or handle PII, right? Those are all systems like we are being very careful about AI written code, and that's where like I mean, even the AI code reviews may not happen as much initially, like it'll all be um, super driven by people, right? And so, but then that surface area is small, right? And that surface area is also not uh, are not areas where you can be super innovative with, right? Like processing a payments is processing a payments, right? Um, like how you do it, which processor you use, and all that, like it's all been hardened over several decades, and like you're not going to make a whole lot of innovation through that approach.
Okay.
But most of the innovation comes higher up in the stack in the application layer, and there we are not being as restrictive.
Okay, great. Jesse asked, beside Claude Code, does the team use Lovable or Bolt or other tools to create MVPs? Or well, how do you think about the tools that you'll let the team use in terms of building the MVP?
Yeah, at this point, we've not really constrained the team on using any tool, for example, right? Like, I mean, we let people use whatever tools that, and then we are converging towards a few, right? So, for example, we are converging towards Claude Code and Cursor, right? And people who are comfortable using CLI use Claude Code. People who are comfortable using IDE are going more towards either Cursor or VS Code with Claude extension within VS Code, right? And then there are people who use Lovable and Bolt, but that is purely for prototyping,
Okay.
right? And instead of showing slides, show prototypes to partners potentially, right? And then from there to get it into production, it still goes through the regular flow. Yeah.
Okay, great. Pavan asked, like, what's your thought process on human in the loop, particularly as a versus kind of pure agentic as you see system scale? Do you still have human in the loop for a lot of these systems? Maybe customer care is one, or how are you thinking through what's purely agentic versus human in the loop?
Um, I would say like for most things, we still need human in the loop, right? Whenever there is judgment involved, right? When there is no judgment involved, when it is like simply rules-based or low-stakes interactions, like for example, if a customer says, "Hey, I want to get an order confirmation," or whatnot, or I want to know about this particular sailing more. What can I do on this sailing? Like these are easier conversations. Like there is clear data to go help the customer, and I think that can be purely agentic. But then the more complex interactions, you definitely need human in the loop, right? And but then the question is, how do you make that human more efficient with AI, right? Instead of them going and clicking 20 different links to help solve the customer problem and put the customer on hold 2 minutes at a time, can you real time understand, interpret the customer's questions, present the relevant information to the agent who's like parallelly reading on a screen and like interacting with the customer based on all the information options they have available to them, right? So that's kind of how we think about it.
Okay.
Things that require high judgment versus things that don't.
Great. Drew is asking about sort of talent pipeline. So one of the questions is if everybody should be an agentic engineer, how do you assure that early in career engineers are actually building and learning the right expertise to actually, debug, decode, understand, iterate with AI?
Um, so, like I said earlier, the bar to be an engineer and the bar to create software is lowering by the day, right? Um, there was a time when like We all used to write C programming and all that, and then from there to today, the bar has already changed on what it takes to be a good engineer, right? And if someone is coming out of college now and is an early career engineer, the bar is even lower compared to what it used to be 20 years ago, right? So I would just start there and then see like how can take a problem that you're passionate about and go solve that and learn the tools along the way, right? And then, of course, definitely have a coach or a guide who can help you along the way. So you can learn from their mistakes and learn how to make higher quality judgments.
And then Sangeeta asks a related question, which is for candidates, like I'm sure many candidates can build now using the tools, but they may not have the deep understanding of agentic AI or deep understanding of AI. How do you balance kind of this person can build using Claude Code and is amazing versus deep understanding of how the model is working, how to iterate with the model, how do you have the right data sets, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think to a large extent, if you you don't have to really understand how the AI models work internally, right? Because even if you gain that understanding today, that understanding is going to change in a week or in a month, right? Because of how fast the foundational models are evolving, and how broadly they are trained. They used to be trained on uh, real human generated data. Now they're getting more and more trained on synthetic AI generated data. And there is so much research going on there as well, right? So if you are someone who wants to work on model building and development and building new models, yeah, maybe yes, you have to understand that deeply and you have to be there. I'm not the person to give you advice because I've not done it, right?
Okay.
But most people don't do that, right? Like most people are actually consumers of the models, and they are building the application layer to solve various problems, right? Be it you're building an application similar to Claude Code or Cursor to help developers write code faster, or you're building an application like, I don't know, Canva to help creators create things. It's like you're typically operating in that application layer. So if you have a very high level understanding of the stack below you, right? The models and the data centers where they are running and the chips on which they are running, so on and so forth, and focus again on the problems to be solved, um, and interact with the models as an interface, right? Like if you know that these are the models that are best used to solve this kind of problem, like if you're trying to do something creative and generate images or other things, Gemini is pretty good, right? If you are trying to do write code, Opus is really good. Like if you have that high level understanding and if you can give every model a persona, right? Uh, then you'll know which tool to use to solve which problem, right? And then you can orchestrate across those. You just become that orchestrator at that point.
Great. So Manil asked a question about product designers, and I think Forrest is on the line as well. So I don't know if Forrest, you want to come off mute to answer this, but like the question is, what does a day in the life look like for a product designer at Arrivia, and how much of the builder attitude gets formulated into the day-to-day work? So I don't know if Forrest is there or not. You
Yeah,
there,
I'm
Forrest?
here.
Okay.
So I'll take this one, sure. So first, I'll just say we're building a new product experience team at Arrivia. So some of this is still to be figured out, which is really exciting because we can really figure out how it works for us. And as the tools change and everything else, we're going to iterate. So I think going back to what Ganesh mentioned earlier, one of his answers to the questions, we're looking for people that are really curious and resilient. So we do use a lot of different AI tools in design. I'm constantly experimenting with them. But how they interact it's kind of TBD to some degree. So ultimately, we want them to be designers first. We want them to be that advocate for the customer who's really thinking about how do we make something simple? How do we really understand the users? All that sort of stuff. And then it's a matter of working with the team to figure out how does that work for you, right? So like if you are more comfortable with like the AI prototyping tools for on the design side, and you want to build those prototypes that way and use Figma sometimes and whatever else, that's a total possibility. If you want to get in the code, that definitely has to go through all the production quality checks and everything else, but that's a possibility as well. So, but I think that builder mindset is just about that creator, and it's not about that handoff. I've long, even before AI, I've not been a big fan of the handoff of like, I've designed this thing, now I hand it over to engineers, I throw it over the wall. And I think AI just kind of helps like decimate that wall and make sure that designers are really partners with engineers, and there can be back and forth, and it becomes a really much more collaborative environment. I hope I answered that well.
Yeah, and then I guess while I have you on screen, when you look at people's demos and they have like, pretty screens, pretty mock-ups, great Figmas, what are you really digging into for this builder transition or this, agentic transition?
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time even just reflecting on what I'm looking at and saying, am I looking at the right things? I think it's kind of interesting that one of Arrivia's values is curiosity. So I'm looking for curiosity and trying and experimenting and learning. I think also one of the things I mentioned earlier, I've long asked people, like, what are the pros and cons of something? And I think that's really true with a lot of the AI tools. People are like, tell me, what's the pros and cons of doing wireframing in Claude? Right? Like there are pros and cons to it versus doing wireframing in, Magic Patterns or something else. And so I'm looking for people that are trying different ideas, experimenting, self-critical. I think kind of the idea of like sometimes having, the strong beliefs loosely held, those sort of things, and just experimenting. And one of the things I like about the challenges we have right now is we allow people to pick one based off of whatever passion they have, what's something they're excited about. And it's really cool when people get to design something that in an area of something that they're really interested in. So I look for that as well. I do care about, we're hiring multiple designers, and so some of it will all come together, but I do care about a depth somewhere. So it could be depth in like the user research and product mindset. That could be a depth in visual design and execution. It could be a depth in overall like information architecture and user journeys and all that. So I am looking for multiple types of designers right now.
Great. All right, and like for the last question, or I think do we have any more?
I think there is a couple in the chat from Trupti.
Okay. Let's see. Trupti asks, sorry, her question is, how do you balance asking for speed versus quality of output? A lot of times it can be easy to get stuck in a loop of iterations. How do you balance speed versus quality, I guess, when you think about it?
Yeah, so speed, quality, both are important, right? And one cannot compromise one for the sake of another, right? So just by the way we measure productivity has evolved over a period of time. And today what we're looking at is speed in terms of code output and in terms of speed to production deployments, right? And then quality in terms of how many of those production deployments are successful, right? How many of those cost problems versus not? How many of those cost a Sev1 or Sev2 issue, right? And then go through that loop, like what did we get wrong? Like, was there something in the pipeline that was not automated enough that didn't catch that? Can we harden that better so that we can continue to have the speed without compromising on the quality, right? So that's kind of how we are looking at it. And of course, we will over-index on one and go lower on the other, and then we'll keep adjusting. That's why when you're curious and resilient, and on top of it also humble, right, you'll find those imbalances and fix it and keep raising the bar on it.
Great. All right, and then I think last question for today is, how have you seen agentic-first engineering impact application stability and reliability, and how have you applied those principles into DevOps and infrastructure?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's always been a topic of debate, right? And like it's also on the tip of the spear where we are pushing the boundaries on those. I'll give you an example, right? Like, I mean, this is one of my recent LinkedIn posts as well. Like, we've had challenges where code goes into production, and then there is there is a spike in errors, and those errors will then impact conversion and then bookings, right? And that's because of some of the quality gates pushing code to production is not fully hardened, right? And so one of our engineers, what she did was she pretty much said, okay, I'm going to bring all this data together, right? And she brought in all of the error data and then all of the funnel conversion signals, and said, okay, I'm going to write an agent that's going to work 24/7, right? And this agent is going to detect anomalies, right? Was there a spike in a particular error based on historical trend? Was there a page where conversion changed based on historical trend? And let's try and correlate the two and then look deeper and figure out which part of the code was generating that error. Was that code that was pushed in a recent release, or has it always been there? And then have the agent not only diagnose the problem, but also fix the problem. And then when she wakes up in the morning, she has a bunch of PRs that she can review and say, okay, check, 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 not check, right? And then that gets pushed into production, right? And you keep doing it over and over again for several weeks. And also you keep improving on this agentic flow over several weeks. You're just going to get to so much better place in a month, 2 months, 3 months, right? So that's kind of how we are continuing to iterate and evolve this practice. Again, we are still barely scratching the surface, to be honest, and we need more curious and resilient people to come make a bigger impact. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Ganesh, thank you so much. This was a wonderful hour. Before we go, any parting words from you and or Forrest? Any thoughts?
I mean, nothing other than what I've already said, just keep your minds open, really, right? Technology is evolving faster than you think. And something that didn't work last week may work this week. Don't give up. Keep trying. That's all I'm
Awesome.
gonna say. Yeah.
Awesome. Forrest, anything you want to end with?
Yeah, I would say that it's adapting and evolving and understanding what works well and what doesn't. I think Ganesh and I were in a conversation earlier today, and one of the sentiments was, well, AI can't even get spelling right sometimes. And that's true, right? But part of learning the tools right now is figuring out what does work well and doubling down on those, figuring out what doesn't work well, and then checking back next week and seeing if it does work well. And I think there's a lot of efficiency gains, a lot of creativity gains to be had, but there's certainly a lot of learning that has to occur, and we're going to have to be constantly learning for the next few years at least when it comes to AI.
Totally. Thank you. Awesome session. Everyone go out and build something tonight. And we are ecstatic to get your applications in for the Arrivia positions on Provn. Reach out if you have any questions, and have a great evening. Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Niki, for hosting.
Bye.